Welcome back, guys. It feels like the lockdown was ages ago, yet its effects still linger, impacting our daily lives as if it just happened yesterday. And unfortunately, our kids were not spared. They've also been impacted, particularly in regards to the social and emotional regulation skills. But the good news is we have a returning guest, Lenora Edwards, on this episode to discuss those social concerns from the lockdown and share her strategies to help your child thrive moving forward. Don't miss this insightful conversation on the Autism Family Resource Podcast, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Autism Family Resource Podcast, where we provide guidance and insights for parenting neurodivergent children. From Pure Hearts Therapy, I'm your host, Brian Keene. It's been a long while, but welcome back to the show, everybody. On today's episode, I have another special guest who's actually been on here before, Lenora Edwards, talking about all different things, speech and echolalia. But today, Lenora Edwards is on here, and I'll give her introduction. She is actually a TEDx speaker and Chief Knowledge Officer with Better Speech. And BetterSpeech.com is a nationwide online platform with over 150 licensed therapists with an average of 10 years experience. They offer free consultations on how they might help you or your loved one with appointments that include evenings and weekends with affordable rates to suit your needs. They even offer itemized bills to submit for reimbursement for those with qualifying insurance. Welcome to the show, Lenora.
Thank you so much for having me again, Brian. It's great to spend time with you as always.
Thank you. I appreciate that and glad to have you on. I want to start off this show by just kind of letting families know what they're in for this episode. What's probably something that they're going to get out of this episode today?
What they'll get out of this episode today is a deeper understanding of language development and the impact that COVID and lockdown had on very young children, especially in their development, but also the delays that we're seeing and how it's impacting children and how it's impacting families and what we can do about it.
That's huge because we kind of just got out of this whole process. So yeah, I think this is going to be a great topic to dive into. So do me a favor now, tell me a little bit more about you and kind of how you got into this and where this passion is coming from.
I have been a speech pathologist since 2009 was when I graduated, so well over 10 years. And among the many things that I love to do is to help people communicate. And over the course of my career, I have worked with children of all ages. And thankfully, Better Speech has such a great standard where they want their clinicians to have at least 10 years experience. And all before the work that I did with Better Speech, I had the opportunities to work in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, and the pediatric intensive care unit. But I've also worked in outpatient clinics and specifically with children and how they're developing and those language delays that they're experiencing. And then I've also worked with adults. And I worked in the adult intensive care unit, but also as an outpatient in the school system and a lot with traumatic brain injuries, but then also even with the geriatric population in skilled nursing facilities. So I have quite the background in language and also in helping people communicate. And what I love most about Better Speech is that we're able to quite literally bring therapists right into your home so that individuals can get the therapy that they need and the high quality therapy that they want. And I think that's such a beautiful mission. And I'm thrilled to be a part of that mission.
That's awesome. Just having that accessibility. And sometimes families don't even know that that's an option.
Yeah.
Just even with my work, they're like, wow, we didn't realize a therapist can come into the home. So that is really huge that you guys offer that. What have you noticed or seen or heard with the effects of the lockdown that we had with what's happened over the last few years?
Yeah. And it's really been quite a huge change. And, as adults, we went into it going with an understanding of, okay, isolation, we need to stay away from people and to protect ourselves. And that was, what they were sharing with us. And that's a great thing that we had the ability and people did the best that they could at that time. Very specifically with children, especially even children in 2018, 2019, and then the ones that were born during the pandemic, which are often referred to as the COVID babies or the pandemic babies. These children were developing, and unfortunately, they missed out on a lot of exposure to language. And when we're learning language, understanding that our brains have the ability to learn language. We are not born with understanding language. We need to have that exposure in order to understand the language that's in our environment. And language exposure, especially rich language environments, are a wonderful thing. And what happened with lockdowns is that we were not able to provide that to children. So think about when you and I were younger, we would knock on the door and, hey, can we come outside and play? Or can my friend come in? And, we had that interaction with other children, or even our parents and our guardians would make sure that we had play dates with other children, or you went to the playground. And even think about going to the grocery store. You see people interacting. And a lot of the time, this goes beyond, our level of conscious awareness. As adults, we're so used to this. We go into the grocery store. We don't think about, oh, I'm listening to other people's conversations, or, oh, I'm seeing how they're interacting. We don't think about that. And right now at this point, it's an unconscious thing. With children, they need to be a part of that environment to understand what's going on and to see how people are interacting, to really understand, oh, turn taking in a conversation, eye contact in a conversation, humor in a conversation. These are all ways that we're using language, and these are ways that language is being shared. With lockdown, what happened was these children were developing and their brains were developing, but they weren't getting this exposure. And now we're seeing this very significant language development delay, as in children don't necessarily understand facial expression. They don't understand how to interpret it because the people that they were communicating with might have had a mask. Or even if you're at the store and you saw people behind a mask, they using a mask cuts off half of your face, and how your lips are moving, how your mouth is engaged, how all your entire face is quite literally communicating makes a huge difference. So we're seeing children that are having difficulty not only just understanding language as in hearing it, they're having difficulty understanding, what do I interpret from that person's facial expression? What do I understand from that person? And that's really the delays that we're seeing in children today.
Wow, that makes sense what you said. It makes me think about verbal in-person communication as opposed to like when someone's texting or email, how so much is lost in translation when you don't see those verbal cues and those social cues. Would you say it's kind of similar to that? They're just losing their ability to read individuals in that way.
Well, we're seeing that ability to really understand those cues more in children that have language. So think about more grammar school, teenage years, because now they have enough of a foundation of it. But what we're noticing very specifically when it comes to text messaging or when it comes to emailing, they're missing the information of how to understand tone. And especially with email, that can be really tricky. Emojis can be really helpful because they quite literally convey the lightheartedness or the seriousness of what somebody's communicating. But that being said, how to have that conversation, what we're noticing is in children that are in the grammar school and middle school and high school is that if they're running into a conflict in person, that's a different story. Because if it's a conflict on your phone, you can swipe away or you can X out of the video game. You don't have to interact with that conflict, which to some extent, okay, well, that's a good thing. But at the same time, now you're having difficulty solving problems. You're having difficulty reasoning through or how to navigate that social situation, which you absolutely will encounter as an adult. So these are, again, things that we don't think of very often. We're like, oh, they're playing on their video game. And what else? How are they solving those problems? How are they getting that social engagement? And when tone is involved, how are they interpreting it? You can say hello 16 different ways, from hello, hello, hello. And just when it comes to tone, it really is important in how we understand somebody's communicating, but also how we hear them communicating and having that social back and forth. And we are naturally communicating creatures to begin with. We are social. And that social isolation really makes an impact. And then you'll hear often, well, I don't know what to say. And that's a problem. And these are kids that I absolutely treat and that we're treating in the speech pathology world. When they don't know what to say, we don't want to leave them hanging. They're like, oh, tough luck. Good luck with that. No, we need to teach these skills. And not only do we teach them once, we have to teach them again and again and again. And one of the things that I'm very supportive of is with my clients, 3 solutions. What are 3 solutions to the problem? And really helping them build that thought flexibility, because that is important. It's not just one way we can solve the problem. There's way more than one. So let's at least address 3 of them.
Wow. So it's not so much, I guess what I'm taking away from here is it's almost like an over reliance on the phones and
Mhm.
emojis and stuff. And we are losing that ability to read each other, right, in
Very
person.
much
That's
so.
what I'm hearing from you, which
Yeah.
is very, very interesting.
Think about when you and I were younger and we'd go to the grocery store with our parents or our guardians, or we would call up and order a pizza, or we would call up and listen for the movie times and have to talk to the operator. These were social situations that we were getting into, and we needed to know how to navigate them. That's very appropriate. Now, you don't have to call for pizza. You don't have to go to the grocery store and interact with a cashier. You don't have to go up to an attendant and say, "Excuse me, can you show me where the cereal is?" These are all things that we don't have to do anymore, but they're very important that we know what to do. I once had a student tell me that they did not go to the grocery store with their mom anymore because one time they stood at the cashier and they didn't know what to do. And they felt that they were very upset about it when mom had to run back to grab whatever ingredient it was that they needed to leave the shopping store with. And that was very upsetting to them. But rather than saying, okay, well, let's work through that, their solution was, well, just don't go to the grocery store. And we really want to build these skills so that children know how to communicate when they become an adult, once they go out into the world. And okay, the credit card machine is down when I'm trying to get gas out of the pump, and I now need to go talk to the cashier, but it says the ATM is out. What do? We need to be able to communicate, and we need to feel comfortable enough in our own communication skills on how to navigate it. It's very, very important.
I love that. That is very important. I kind of want to get back
I
to
know we took a sidebar.
what you said a second ago because it kind of ties right into this. That hit me is like people get stuck. It almost reminds me kind of a little bit of anxiety. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do in this example. Can you give me an example of kind of what you guys would work on for that? I know you said maybe 3 solutions. Is that one of the strategies that you use when
Mhm.
you're helping kids brainstorm what to say in these social contexts where they're not really familiar with it?
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed that out. I'm so glad that you asked to elaborate on it. When they don't know what to do, no problem. That's okay. Us as the adult, it's our responsibility to teach them what else they can do rather than saying, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait till you figure it out. If that's where that individual is. And as the clinician, that's not my approach. My approach is, oh, you don't know what to do. Great. What might we be able to do? So adding that one word lets that individual start to have that thought flexibility that goes, okay, well, whatever I say won't necessarily be wrong. So, what might I do in that situation? A lot of the time, especially children are thinking, I don't know what to do. And what they're not saying is, and I don't want to be wrong in what I tell you, versus saying when we ask them, what might you do? It makes this massive shift in their mind. How might I solve the problem? It really lets them understand I don't have to focus about being right or wrong. Now I just get to say whatever comes to mind. And offering that space for an individual to say, okay, well, maybe I could ask somebody for help. Great. Who might you ask for help? And it gives them the next step and the next step and the next step. And we're working together with it, but we're working together in quite literally situations that we're saying, this might occur. How do we want to navigate it? And then we go, oh, wow. Okay. So we know how to navigate the grocery store. What's another time that you've ever said, I don't know what to do? And it might be, my friend took my controller and I never got it back and I didn't know what to say because I didn't want to be mean. They're saying, I didn't know what to say. But what they're not saying is, because I da 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 da, whatever they didn't know how to navigate, or they didn't want to be wrong, or they didn't want to be rude. There's a dot 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 after that, and that's where we want to go because there's something that they know. They're communicating. These grammar school kids are communicating. These middle school kids, high school kids, they're communicating. They might just be fearful that they'll get it wrong, or they're so anxious because they've never been asked, how might you navigate it? And they really genuinely don't know. And that's okay. That's our responsibility as teachers, as therapists, as parents, as guardians, to teach them, to show them in a way that's helpful and that it's not shameful. And why didn't you know better? No, 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 no. We're here to teach you. It's not your fault that you didn't know. Let's teach it in. And that's definitely something, especially when it comes to, even during the pandemic, kiddos that are experiencing autism, they didn't have this exposure to social groups. So now we're wanting to make sure that they get this exposure. And when we're trying to help them understand how to enter a conversation, how to understand a joke, how to leave a conversation, they don't know and they didn't see it. They didn't see what was going on in their environment. And that makes a huge difference because now they really don't know. We're working to help that brain catch up. We're working to help that nervous system catch up. And it really is something to be said that we need to make these spaces where they have the opportunity to have these social groups to engage and practice and implement and execute effectively. And if not, no problem. Let's go back to the drawing board. Where are we and how can we help these children, whether they are diagnosed with autism, whether they are typically developing, whether they're neurotypically developing, whatever they are, it is our responsibility as the community, as people of this world, to help them communicate because they did have this massive gap of time and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't our fault either, but they still need help and it's still our responsibility.
There's a couple things I took out of that that I really loved. I think the first thing that you said was in so many words was when you are coaching these your kids, it's almost like you're trusting their natural intuition and you're teaching them. But it's like a lot of times, especially our autistic community, it's like very rigid in the way we do things. But I love that you're like, hey, what are our options? So you're giving them permission to say, what are our options? Because sometimes it feels like we got to do things a certain way and kind of just growing from there. So I do love that. But I think another thing I took out of that too was just the whole modeling and practice, right? With anything in life, if we don't practice, we're not going to get better at it. So we definitely got to practice with our kids and create those environments where they do get those social opportunities because they lost so much during the pandemic and during COVID and all that stuff. So help me out. Give me something for parents. If someone listens to this right now, what's something that they could start doing at home now to kind of get those opportunities to get those more social interactions so they can continue to learn and engage?
You just said it so beautifully, modeling. Absolutely. Bring them to those social situations and share with them, show them quite literally. And I wouldn't say, oh, your child has never talked to somebody in the grocery store and we're often taught don't talk to strangers. That being said, we need to have discernment and we also need to understand that going up to somebody in a uniform at a grocery store is appropriate. Getting in their car with them is not appropriate. So helping them understand that situation, but rather than saying, okay, go ask that person for a cereal, and this individual has no idea how to go up to somebody and ask them, you show them, you model it for them. You show how going up to people can be a good experience. You can communicate your wants and your needs, and you can do so in a polite way. Even going up to, having these interactions of, yes, we can absolutely order coffee and donuts from our Dunkin' Donuts app, and we can go right up and I can walk in the store, pick up my order and walk out and never talk to anybody. Standing in line and saying, okay, well, we're going to go into the store. We're going to wait for our coffee, talking to the person. Oh, are you having a good day? Oh, let me hold the door for you. These are all social interactions. They're quite literally very social interactions that we don't think of as social interactions. So by modeling it and saying, okay, well, we're going to hold the door for this person. We're going to, oh, hi, have a great day. Sharing with them that it's safe to communicate and that it's also safe to go up to the counter and say, hi, I'd like a large coffee and I'd like 3 donuts to go. Oh, thank you for my change. And having this interaction is a safe experience, is a good experience, because not only are you showing that you're social, you get this bonus of feeling good, of having a social interaction and being able to communicate effectively. And you get to show your child that. And then depending on their age, you can go up to the counter with them. Okay, I ordered this. What would you like? And turn to them and ask them, what did they want? Let them know it's safe to communicate to that person that they have wants and needs, that they don't need you to speak for them all the time. This is modeling, but it's also modeling and teaching in an effective way, in a way that they can quite literally go, oh, wow, I'm okay. I did that. I went and I talked to somebody, and celebrate it. And it might sound strange for people who are naturally talkative, but there are people who are not naturally talkative, but they can learn to talk and they can learn to effectively communicate on a regular basis without the social anxiety or without the I don't know what to do.
That's huge. We're definitely giving our kids like permission, and we're teaching. And when it comes to modeling, I can definitely, from being a therapist, I know that modeling works because I see so much from kids, and they have certain, I'm gonna call behaviors. I don't want to use behaviors, but that's the only word that comes to my head. But essentially, I'll see their parents, and I'll kind of like, oh, okay, that's where they get these things from,
Totally.
whether it's good, bad, neutral, whatever. So
Absolutely. Characteristics.
yeah, kids are sponges, so they definitely pick up what we do. We just may not notice there. It's like when you were kids and you say something, and then next thing you know, they're saying, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's a big takeaway is like modeling. And then I love that you said giving permission to kind of like, hey, do you want to ask for this or
Yeah.
ask for that? I think that's like a great tool for sure.
Yeah. Especially when we're natural caregivers and we want to help. And we want to help so much, but we also need to recognize that helping is also holding back and letting them know it's okay. Just in case I'm here, I got your back, but it's okay. You don't need me for this. That's also a gift.
Gotcha. I love that. I love that you shared these things. Is there anything else that's kind of on your mind that you feel like you want to give to our audience?
Absolutely. If you have questions about your loved one's communication, or if you have questions about your loved one's memory loss, or that something else is going on and you're noticing that something isn't quite right, reach out to professionals and to trust your instincts. A lot of the time, people are saying, oh, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. Don't feel like you have to listen to other people when your instincts are telling you, yeah, I just something isn't quite right. Trust your instincts. Reach out to professionals, whether it is for your child walking, or if it is for your loved one not being able to remember certain things or finding objects in random places. Trust your instincts. Reach out to professionals. If you have questions, keep asking. And I am a huge supporter of questions. And, I often think of there's no such thing as a dumb question. And I wish that wasn't a phrase, because people will often lead with, this might sound like a dumb question. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm welcoming it. I rather you ask and be curious. It's not dumb. It's not stupid. You're curious. So if you're curious about something and you're questioning it, keep following that curiosity and reach out to professionals.
That's awesome. I love that takeaway. And I definitely want to add on to that is that if you are trusting your intuition and you have a good therapist you're working with, it's going to be a collaborative effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be like they're just telling you what to do. You guys are going to be bouncing ideas off of each other. And it's hey, that didn't work. Let's try this.
Yeah.
And I think that empowering parents to really do what they believe or what feels right is huge, because I don't feel like parents always feel that way.
Yeah, especially because your child didn't come with a handbook or a guidebook. Ask questions, and also go. I love what you said. The professionals that you have great rapport with, if you have a great therapist, talk with them. You are a part of their team. They're not telling you what to do. They're on your side. They're on your team, and they want to know as much as possible, and also how to be of service as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your insights and all the value you brought to this episode today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Right back at you.
Thank you again, Lenora Edwards, for coming onto the show and sharing your insights. I think she did a great job explaining how a lot of these passive skills, social skills that we take for granted in our everyday activities could easily be lost and not learned during the lockdown because we were isolated and we had to wear masks. So just a lot was lost in translation. And as a result, our kids are not learning how to understand tone and body language and communication the same way they would have if they would have had more interactions. But the good news, though, is that we learn with modeling, showing your kids how to do these things, practice, and increase exposures to social interaction. We can begin to work on these skills and they can get better at these. If you would like continued support, make sure to reach out to a therapist. The therapist is there to make sure you're not alone, to help you navigate through the process. Just think of it as a teamwork activity. And if you are interested in working with Lenora Edwards, you can find her at BetterHelp, and her information is also located in the show notes. Resources shared in this show are created to empower your family to thrive. I believe community leads to growth and learning, so let's connect. Follow me on the Pure Hearts Therapy social media pages where you can contact me directly for questions. The links to this show and my contact information are in the show notes. Just scroll down in your podcast player or simply visit pureheartstherapy.com for more information. Thanks for listening to the Autism Family Resource Podcast. Subscribe now for more resources to empower your family to thrive and live your best lives. See you next time.